The death of spirits. In the sleepy fishing village of Nsaya, the sun rose each day over cracked mud walls and corrugated roofs that shimmered with rust. Life moved slowly, pulled along by the tides of the Atlantic, and for most, survival was the only ambition. Kojo lived in a one-room hut at the village's edge, alone, ever since his father's passing. The old man had died with more deaths than fish in his net, leaving Kojo burdened with promises he couldn't keep. The villagers never let him forget. Like father, like son, the fish seller muttered as Kojo passed. Dreams don't fill your belly, Kojo. Children threw pebbles at his feet. Men ignored him. Women looked past him. But Kojo had a fire in him, a small, defiant flame that wouldn't go out, no matter how hard the world tried to stomp it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mangrove trees, Kojo sat by the river, his feet dangling above the swirling water. He muttered to his father's spirit, hoping it might still linger in the wind. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. "I need more than fish bones and shame." A shuffle in the reeds made him turn. An old man stood there. Skin like ancient bark, white beard to his chest, and eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. He wore no shoes, only a tattered robe and a necklace made of cowrie shells and bones. "You speak loudly for a man who calls spirits," the stranger asked. Kojo rose to his feet, startled. "I didn't call, who are you?" The man didn't answer. He only stepped closer and dipped his fingers into the river. "You seek freedom from your father's debts." Kojo hesitated, then nodded. "There is a way," the old man said. "But it is not for the weak. It is not for the greedy." Kojo narrowed his eyes. "What way?" The old man's lips curved into a smile, like a storm gathering on the horizon. "There is a ritual. Forbidden, forgotten by most. If done properly, you will be given a spirit bride from beneath the river. She will bless you with wealth, with abundance. But you must never betray her. And once begun, you cannot turn back." Kojo stared at him, caught between fear and fascination. "What do I have to do?" "Bring a white rooster, a bottle of palm wine, and a cloth from your father's burial," the old man said, voice suddenly low and serious. "At midnight, place them by the river. Alone. Do not speak. Do not look back." Kojo's breath hitched. His pulse raced. He should walk away. He should run. But the hunger in his belly was louder than the fear in his chest. That night, under the stare of a half-moon and the whisper of restless trees, Kojo crept to the riverbank. He laid down the rooster, its feathers glistening in the moonlight. He poured the palm wine into a bowl carved from calabash. He placed the faded burial cloth, the last thing his father had touched, on a stone. The air thickened. The crickets stopped. Even the river seemed to pause. Kojo stood frozen, heart hammering, as shadows moved in the reeds. The wind picked up. A low hum filled the air, soft, melodic, almost human. And then, a pale hand, glistening with river water, reached up from the depths. Kojo's breath caught. The spirit bride was coming, the river bride. The moment the pale hand broke the river's surface, the world seemed to vanish. Kojo couldn't move. Couldn't blink. From the depths of the black water, a voice echoed, soft, melodic, but laced with something ancient. "Come." Kojo stepped forward, barefoot, as if something beyond him had taken control. The water rippled at his ankles. Then his knees. Then his chest. And suddenly, he was no longer standing in the river. He was somewhere else. A forest, not of trees, but of mist and moonlight. Silver tendrils curled around his feet, and strange glowing eyes blinked from the underbrush. He turned, heart pounding, to find the old man standing at the edge of a circle, marked with ash and feathers. "The test begins," the man said. "Do not scream. Do not flee. Sleep, and let the spirits decide. Before Kojo could protest, the old man vanished. The circle filled with sound, clicks, growls, rustling leaves. Kojo laid down. And the spirit animals came. A jackal with eyes of fire. A serpent made of shadows. A bird with feathers of smoke. They circled him. Washed him. One brushed its snout against his skin. Kojo trembled, but didn't move. 1 hour passed. Then 2. His body stiffened from fear, but he stayed silent. And just before dawn, the spirits vanished. A soft light glowed in the distance. Kojo stood and saw her. She walked across the river as if it were glass, the water parting beneath her bare feet. Her skin shimmered like pearls in moonlight. Her hair flowed like a waterfall of black silk. Her eyes held centuries. "You did not run," she said. Kojo tried to speak, but his voice cracked. "You have been chosen," she continued. "You brought truth. Pain. Sacrifice. You offered more than gold." She placed her hand on his chest. "I accept." The mist howled. The river roared. The spirits surrounded them, whispering in forgotten tongues. Kojo's offering had been accepted. He had a bride now. A river bride. As dawn broke, she led him to the water's edge. There, she gave him her rules, her voice like honey and storm. "You must never betray me with another. You must never speak of me to the living. Each night, when the moon rises, you must meet me here. Under the sky. Just us." Kojo nodded, still dazed, the weight of the moment crashing over him like waves. He awoke the next morning by the riverbank, the ritual items gone. His clothes were dry. His hands were clean. But something in him had changed. When he returned to the village, the first thing he saw was the fish piled high on his doorstep. By evening, his father's creditors were paid. By week's end, he had a new boat. By the end of the month, he had a new house. And the villagers began to whisper. How did he rise so fast? Kojo, the poor man's son. Something's not right. But Kojo didn't answer. He kept to himself. Each night, he slipped into the shadows and went to the river. And each night, she was there. Silent. Beautiful. Powerful. But the more his wealth grew, the more he began to wonder. Who was she? What was she? And what had he truly agreed to? One night, as he sat on the edge of his silk-draped bed, staring at his gold-lined walls and untouched food, he whispered to himself. Am I still free? A sudden knock echoed from the inside of his mirror. And he froze. A house of scales. Kojo's mansion rose like a monument carved from dreams and dread. Where once stood a weather-worn hut, now stood a palace of black stone and gold-trimmed doors. Walls etched with sacred sigils. Roofs thatched with enchanted reeds that never aged. Servants came from distant towns to serve him, silent, efficient, but always dismissed before sunset. Because at night, the house changed. Doors locked themselves. The air grew thick with moisture. And from the high windows, one could hear the sound of hissing and singing. Kojo never explained why. The villagers stopped asking. Still, they feared him. The man who came from nothing, who rose without help, and whose eyes now glowed faintly under moonlight. But behind the luxury, Kojo's heart weighed heavy. One rain-slick night, his spirit bride emerged from the mist cradling a child wrapped in kelp and gold thread. A son, she said. Their son. He had his mother's haunting beauty, and something more. At dawn, he laughed like any child. Crawled. Cried. Clung to Kojo's chest. But at night, he changed. Scales crept over his body. His pupils narrowed into slits. His small, delicate body slithered through the shadows. Kojo once awoke to find the child coiled at the foot of the bed, flicking a forked tongue at the moon. The spirit bride said nothing of it. "This is what our love creates," she whispered once, holding the child close. "Not monster. Not man. But something new." Kojo nodded, but the fear was already rooted. He began spending more time away from home during the day, visiting nearby markets, hosting distant merchants, and wandering down to the village's old herb gardens, where the healer's daughter tended to the sick. Her name was Adoma. And when Kojo first spoke to her, something inside him quieted. She didn't stare at his fine clothes. She didn't ask about his riches. She spoke softly. Listened deeply. Her hands were always warm, her words come like spring winds. She laughed, not out of awe, but from truth. For the first time since the river, Kojo remembered who he used to be. He returned to her again. And again. They spoke of stars, of roots that could cure fever, of his childhood dreams before death and grief and spirits twisted his path. He never spoke of the river bride. Not fully. But Adoma knew something dark followed him. "I see it in your eyes," she said once, gently pressing a herb poultice to his palm. "You carry a shadow." Kojo didn't answer. Because the truth was clawing at him now, this life, this deal, the nightly rituals and shifting child, it all felt borrowed. Like a mask he wore for someone else's play. And then, one humid evening, after a long walk near the cliffs, under a sky so full of stars it looked like the heavens had spilled, he kissed her. Just once. But it was enough. The moment his lips touched Adoma's, the wind howled. The earth trembled. The air grew thick with salt. And far away, from the river, a scream shattered the night the curse revealed. The moment Kojo kissed Adoma, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, the river roared. At that exact instant, back at his mansion, the spirit bride's eyes flared with betrayal. The moonlight caught the shimmer of her tears, before she vanished into mist. When Kojo returned home, the crib was empty. No footprints. No cries. No lullabies. Only a note scratched into the wall, made not by ink, but by claw. "You broke the sacred bond. The river remembers." That night, thunder cracked through a clear sky. His servants woke to find their skin covered in scales. By morning, they had all fled. The crops blackened. Fish floated lifeless in the nets. And the walls of his mansion began to weep. Literally. Water trickled from the ceilings. Salt water. Paint peeled. Stones shifted. Doors locked themselves. The once golden floors turned cold and damp, covered in river silt and crawling moss. Kojo tried to pray. But his words echoed back in her voice. "You asked for wealth," the spirit bride whispered, every time he shut his eyes. "You begged for power. You broke your vows for a touch. Now, I take back everything." Each night, he dreamed of her eyes, two glowing pools staring from beneath the surface of a pitch-dark river. In one hand, she held their son. In the other, a knife carved from fishbone and fire coral. "Choose," she said in the dreams. "Me, or nothing." And Kojo always woke up screaming. With nowhere else to turn, he sought the oracle of the forest, an ancient woman with skin like tree bark and eyes blind from looking too long into the spirit realm. She listened to his story without flinching. Then, she spoke in a voice older than the trees. "There is only one way to break a river vow. Find the mirror of truth, hidden beneath the sacred waterfall. Where spirits do not lie, and your soul will be shown its weight. But beware, Kojo. The river is watching. And not all truths wish to be seen." She handed him a gourd of enchanted oil and a talisman carved from bone. "Go now," she said. "Before the serpent finds you first." And so he did. Kojo wrapped himself in a torn cloak, kissed Adoma's sleeping forehead one last time, and set off into the thick, breathing jungle. Each step took him deeper into the unknown, past trees that whispered, through vines that bled sap like tears. But as he reached the edge of the sacred valley, near the roaring sound of the hidden waterfall, he heard it. A slither. Wet. Heavy. Slow. Something was following him. Something born of river blood. The trials of redemption. Kojo trekked for days, the jungle swallowing him whole. Rain lashed at his back. Roots snagged his ankles. Shadows slithered at the corners of his vision, not quite animals, not quite ghosts. He was being watched. He was being judged. As the sacred waterfall drew nearer, the air thickened, humming with ancient power. Then came the visions. They weren't dreams, they were truths, cruel and vivid. He saw himself as a boy, begging his father not to gamble their home away. He saw the villagers laughing at him. The bitterness he swallowed. The shame that festered. He saw the moment he said yes to the river bride, not out of love, but out of desperation and pride. And then, temptations. A clearing with a chest of gold. Food that never rotted. A woman's laughter calling him to rest. Kojo almost gave in. Almost. But he pressed forward, muttering the names of those he'd failed. Until he reached it. The sacred waterfall. It didn't shimmer like story said. It boomed, as if the sky itself fell endlessly into the earth. And at its base, the mirror of truth. Tall. Silver. Alive. Kojo looked into it. And what stared back was not fully him. The right side of his reflection was his skin weathered by sun and sorrow. But the left, scales. Fins. Eyes like the river bride. Half human. Half serpent. He collapsed, choking back a scream. The mirror paused, a voice rising from its depths. Choose. Your soul and peace. Or your riches and ruin. Kojo closed his eyes. He saw his son's serpent form. His wife's watery gaze. The kiss with Adoma. His mansion. His hunger for status. And then, he chose. Crack. He smashed the mirror. The jungle screamed. Light poured from the shards like liquid dawn. Every tree bowed. Every serpent fled. Out of the blinding light, a figure emerged, neither man nor woman. Neither spirit nor beast. The spirit of balance. Drifting. Glowing. Eyes like burning moons. You have seen yourself, it said. And chosen truth over vanity. But there is one step left. You must face her, not as a thief of magic. But as a man ready to give what he once took. The spirit reached into the pool and pulled out an obsidian dagger wrapped in vines. At the hour of the eclipse, meet her at the river. Bring no lies. Bring no weapon. Only this. Kojo took the dagger. And for the first time in years, his hands didn't tremble. That night, as the moon began to swallow the sun, Kojo returned to the river. The air was still. The water waited. And in the distance, she rose. His river bride. Her eyes shimmered with sadness, fury, and something else. Recognition. Kojo took a breath. And stepped forward, the last night of the serpent. The moon bled silver as the eclipse swallowed the sky. Kojo stood barefoot at the river's edge. No riches. No offerings. Only the obsidian dagger clutched loosely in his palm, not to harm, but to release. The water rippled unnaturally. Then she rose. His river bride. She emerged like mist turning solid, part woman, part myth. Her eyes glowed like twin moons, hair drifting in slow waves behind her, fingers ending in delicate, pearlescent claws. But her form wavered. One moment, she was the ethereal beauty who had once chosen him under starlight. The next, she was scaled, serpentine, with gills that pulsed like warning drums. She was love. She was vengeance. She was both. You broke the pact, she said, voice echoing like wind through hollow stones. You betrayed our union. You tasted love beyond my water. Kojo stepped forward, his voice shaking but unafraid. I was weak. And I was foolish. But not wicked. I came not to fight, but to beg for your forgiveness. He dropped the dagger into the water. It hissed, not in anger, but like a sigh relieved. Then he fell to his knees. I know I cannot undo what I did. I used your power for pride, not purpose. I did not honor you, or our child. The river bride watched him. Unmoving. Unblinking. The air thickened. Suddenly, the river swelled, and from it rose visions, illusions shaped from his past. Kojo saw himself laughing over gold, servants kneeling before him. He saw Adoma. Her gentle touch. He saw his serpent son, hissing in fear, abandoned in the dark waters. Pain. Love. Regret. All pulled through his chest like rope. Then she stepped forward, touching his face. Would you have loved me? She asked softly. Had I not offered you gold? Yes, Kojo whispered. But I see now that I never truly knew how. A long silence. Then, she wept. Not with tears, but with river. Water ran from her eyes, glowing with blue light, and where they fell, lotus flowers bloomed. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. Then the curse is broken. But never forgotten. Every choice, she whispered, binds its own price. And with that, she vanished. No scream. No flash. Just repose folding inward, as if she had never been. Only the river remained still, deep, and eternal. Kojo returned to the village the next morning. No wealth followed him. No spirits danced behind. The villagers, once mockers, stared in silence. The mansion was gone. In its place, a single clay hut, built by his own hands. He became the man who helped the fishermen repair their nets. The one who sang songs with the children near the shore. The one who knelt beside the sick with herbs from Adoma's garden. He was not feared. Nor praised. But he was free. A year passed. The eclipse returned. And so did a child. Adoma bore him a son, skin like cocoa, eyes wide with joy. No scales. No fangs. Just laughter. The village gathered around the fire that night. And Kojo held his son close as he whispered stories of love, loss, spirits, and serpents. And of a river that once took everything. So he could learn what truly matters. The end.